The widespread adoption of smartphones means we're all making more video than ever. Whether it's for social media or YouTube or just for personal memories, one thing that most smartphone footage has in common is that it's shaky to the point of not really being that pleasant to watch. That is, unless you have a gimbal, which is something that smooths out your footage for you. But there's a problem. Most gimbals are either prohibitively expensive or far too bulky to transport. That is, until now. My name is Ian Buckley and this is the Make Use of review of the Zhiyun Smooth-Q2 gimbal. One slight difference with this review is that I am filming the whole thing on the gimbal. Unless you can see the gimbal itself in shot, you can assume it was recorded using the Smooth-Q2. Although of course the gimbal has nothing to do with the picture quality or sound quality, just the smoothing. So before getting properly started with this review, I want to give you a quick demonstration. This is me walking normally holding my smartphone, not in the gimbal. Now if I'm walking you'll notice it's jerky, and if I even start moving just a little bit faster, the footage becomes incredibly shaky and quite nauseous to watch on a large screen. By contrast, this is me walking using the gimbal, and even if I start to run a little bit, the footage stays relatively smooth. In short, a gimbal is a housing with 3 motors in it and a gyroscope which smooths out all of your footage. This gimbal also has a few extra features which we'll get into later. Now, gimbals are not a new concept, but the thing that sets the Smooth-Q2 aside is its size. It's around 20 centimeters tall when folded, which means it will fit comfortably in your pocket. And that is a focus of the Kickstarter campaign, which is going to be shipping to people in October. This is a gimbal aimed at travelers and people who want to film things on their smartphone on the move. The basic early bird package on Kickstarter is $109, with a premium package with a few accessories costing $119. Now this Kickstarter is still active and there is not a price for release, although it is stated to be around $30 more, so that'll be $140 odd for the gimbal as the basic package and $150 odd for the premium package. Either way, this is definitely a budget-focused gimbal. Since this is an unreleased Kickstarter product, there wasn't much of an unboxing. I got a blank box with the gimbal and a charging cable and a quick start guide in Chinese. There's also an app for all Zhiyun products called ZY Play, but unfortunately the Smooth-Q2 is not supported by this app at the time of the review. So what I'm going to do is review this gimbal with the features that are available to me. That's all of the on-gimbal features and the Bluetooth connection for starting and stopping the recording using the in-handle controls. In terms of specifications, this gimbal measures 204 by 102 by 41.5 millimeters and is 450 grams. It supports smartphones between 55 and 86 millimeters in width and 75 to 260 grams in weight. The internal battery is a 4,500 mAh 21700 lithium-ion battery, which gives up to 16 hours of runtime, and the charge time for the gimbal is around 4 hours. The body of the gimbal is made of CNC'd aluminium with a rubber handle, which is a nice touch. Many other smartphone gimbals at this price range are made of plastic. This gimbal feels solid without being too heavy. I do have a particularly heavy smartphone and these reviews take a very long time to film, so my arms have been getting a little bit tired. But I would say for moderate to long-term use, most people will find this thing very easy to use. The build quality on this thing feels excellent. It's solid without being too heavy, and it feels like it's the kind of thing that won't actually get damaged if it's in your pocket or in a bag, which is perfect for a travel-focused gimbal. Now would be a good time to mention that this gimbal also serves as a battery bank. There is a micro USB port on the top of the gimbal which can be used to power your phone while you are filming or just as a standard battery bank, but of course this will bring down the runtime of the gimbal. The battery bank is a nice touch, but even cooler than that in my opinion is the fact that you can unscrew the bottom and simply remove and replace the battery. In an age when so many devices have their batteries stuck inside and you can't get at them, a removable battery makes this, again, perfect for travelers, but also useful for people that might want to use this gimbal semi-professionally and don't want to worry about running out of battery when on a shoot. So in terms of user experience, setting up this gimbal was incredibly simple. Once it was charged, I attached the clip for the gimbal to my phone, and then the clip attaches to the gimbal and locks in place. Once that's done, I just turned the gimbal on and balanced it, and I was ready to go. There was no setup on the phone required, although as I said, I did connect my phone to it via Bluetooth so I can use the in-handle record button, and other than that, everything else is taken care of on the gimbal. The handle features a power button, a record button, and a 4-axis pressable joystick. This joystick is what you use to choose what gimbal program you are using at the time, and it is also what you can use to move the phone around on the gimbal for the manual movement modes. There are 5 available modes for this gimbal, and the first one is the pan follow mode, which is the one that I am using now. This means that from left to right it will follow your panning, but if you were to put your hand out in front of you or bring it towards you, it keeps the gimbal level. However, if you want to change the pitch, you can do that using the joystick on board. Next is the lock mode of the gimbal, and this will simply lock the gimbal in place, so no matter what you do, the phone will stay pointing the same direction. And once again, you can use the joystick to move the gimbal around in this position, but this is perfect if you just want to keep the phone pointing the same direction no matter what you do. Next up is the follow mode, and this is the one that I found myself using the most. This allows you to simply turn your wrist backwards and forwards and up and down, and it will just follow you no matter which way you do it. I found this incredibly useful at IFA when I was filming drones, because I could just stick my hand up in the air and know that it would point at it smoothly. The joystick in this mode is used for changing the roll of the camera, which brings us on to the POV mode, which is exactly like the follow mode, except it also reacts to when you twist your wrist. And the 5th and final mode is vortex mode, which doesn't work quite as well in selfie mode as it does when you are filming forwards, but essentially this allows you to use the joystick to just spin the camera over and over and over again. The gimbal is very intuitive to use, and there are 4 LEDs on the handle for the 4 main modes I just mentioned. Once you get to the 4th mode, if you press it again, it will go into vortex mode, and you can go up the modes by pressing the button once and back down the modes by pressing it twice. If you press the power button briefly, it will show you how much battery is left across the 4 LEDs, and the joystick itself doesn't have any variable speed but is fairly easy to use. However, I did notice that a few times I would accidentally press the joystick button while moving the gimbal using it and moving on to the next selection. That's probably got more to do with my thumbs than anything else. So the combination of how small this gimbal is compared to how well it performs, and the fact that the quick release catch for the phone means you can be up and running very quickly, means there's very little I can find to fault this gimbal on. At no point did I find the motors particularly struggling, and I do have a heavier smartphone than most. It does fit within the weight limit of the gimbal, but it's wide, it's large, and because of where the power button on my phone is, I couldn't put it on the center. It's not fully balanced, yet the gimbal's just taking it in its stride, and it doesn't particularly seem to mind. The quick release clip is a nice idea, and I found that leaving it on my phone with my phone in one pocket and the gimbal in the other was okay. It wasn't particularly cumbersome. However, later on during this review, I found myself simply just removing my phone from the clip, as my phone wasn't going to be sitting centrally in it anyway. It wasn't perfectly balanced. The gimbal was doing that, and it was just about as quick for me. However, having the quick release there is a nice touch. As well as the tripod mount, the premium version of this gimbal comes with a desk tripod. Although I discovered while reviewing this that it will actually quite happily just stand up by itself on a flat surface. That's what I'm doing now. This is just sitting on a piece of paper on a hill in the park, and yet still seems to be quite happy sitting by itself. So throughout the testing of this gimbal, I found that everything seems to feature much as they have promised in their Kickstarter video. It is compact, it is easy to use, it smooths out footage even if you aren't being particularly smooth. I would imagine that no matter what crazy form of transport you are on in any part of the world, this will give you a fantastic bit of footage, or even if you just want to get some nice smooth footage of someone's birthday party, this is cheap, it is compact, it is great. So are there any problems with it? So the simple answer to that is not really. I can't think of any particular problem that would make me not want to recommend this gimbal. There isn't any standard portrait filming mode, I suppose. I mean, you can do it simply by just turning the gimbal sideways, like this. And that will give you a portrait mode, and you just hold the gimbal arm out to the side. But I'm still one of the camp that thinks that portrait video should never be allowed under any circumstances, he said while filming in portrait mode. In terms of minor gripes, there are a couple, but that's only because my smartphone is so big and bulky. It's a little too wide for the clip, but even so, it still feels perfectly secure in the clip, and the power button being halfway down the body of my phone meant that I couldn't put the phone in centrally, but as you can see, the gimbal just seems to take it in its stride and be perfectly happy. One potential future problem for this gimbal, which I didn't come across, but you may if you buy a new phone with a super wide angle lens, is that it's likely that the front gimbal arm will be in shot, but that's only when you're holding the gimbal absolutely vertically. And there's also supposed to be a firmware update to tackle this issue, but to be honest, when all you need to do is move your arm forward a little bit like that, if you really want to get a fantastic travel gimbal, that shouldn't be enough to put you off the Smooth-Q2. So should you buy the Zhiyun Smooth-Q2 gimbal? Well, it depends when you're watching this review. At the time of making it, it's not out yet. You can pledge for it on Kickstarter, as I mentioned before, and you should also understand that no matter who is running a Kickstarter campaign, that you can get burned by them. That said, Zhiyun have delivered a huge amount of great products to the market. The Kickstarter has already met its goal twice over, and there is no reason to think, with the quality of the gimbal I'm holding right now, that they're not going to ship on time to all of their supporters. Despite lacking the features that the smartphone app will bring when it supports this gimbal, I didn't feel that this gimbal was missing any features whatsoever. It is a fantastic gimbal, well built, good battery life, and it's very easy to use. At $109 for the main Kickstarter pledge, it's also a steal right now. In short, I can't recommend this gimbal enough. Thank you all so much for watching this Make Use of review. There is also a written version of this review that will be linked in the description of this video. And this YouTube channel also does tutorials and tech tips alongside reviews and giveaways, so consider giving us a subscription if you haven't already. But for now, thank you so much and take care. Alright folks, if you're still here right at the end, you know what that means. Zhiyun have given us one of these gimbals to give away. So all you need to do to get extra entries is enter on the Make Use of website with the code SMOOTH-Q2 without the hyphen. All one word, SMOOTH-Q2. You will get extra entries into the competition. Good luck, and we'll see you in the next review. Take care.